Coming up now on Animal Outtakes.
Oh, I love being out here with the horses.
These are not your typical horses. These are, in fact, Mustangs. We are visiting the Wild Horse Rescue Center.
And for me, this has been one of my sunshine stories.
Their goal is to work with these Mustangs and to get them to this point. And...
Hey, bud, you remember me? Of course you don't, because fish don't have memories, right?
This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. You may not even think about this animal as being wild, but horses have in fact been roaming parts of the United States for hundreds of years. It is the responsibility of the Bureau of Land Management to control the population and oversee the wild horses in the U.S. The Bureau has roundups, where Mustangs are captured in the hopes of being adopted, and some go to places like Wild Horse Rescue Center.
I love being out here with the horses, yes. We have the horses on the 25 acres. I love going and seeing them. I love seeing horses in their natural environment. Just doing what horses like to do, just hanging out and eating and just being a horse.
On more than 40 acres on the east coast of Florida, you can find the Wild Horse Rescue Center. Here, nearly 40 once wild horses live. You are called a Wild Horse Rescue Center versus a tame horse rescue center. What really makes a horse a wild horse?
Well, when I got involved with working with the wild horses from out west through the Adopt a Horse program, there's 10 western states that have Mustangs, we'll call them, wild horses, and they're running on these states. The Bureau has the land, so they round up these wild horses. They're born in the wild. Nobody is directing the breeding program or anything. It is natural selection. Your stallions have to battle for the mares, and sick or old sometimes don't make it because of the predators. So these horses actually are survivors out there. So the Bureau rounds them up. They bring them to the satellite adoptions, like I mentioned, and then we bring them in here. The reason I became a wild horse center is many people don't understand that wild really means like a wild deer, like you went and caught a deer. So your wild horses come from 600 years on this country, from when the Spaniards came and reintroduced the horse to North America, and they have crossbred with European horses, like the Arabian and the Thoroughbred came from Europe. Some of your draft horses came from Europe. So as the West was becoming populated by people, these horses escaped or got loose. Actually, the cavalry used to put their stallions out with the wild herds. Unfortunately, they would shoot the stallions so that that stallion would breed. So you have Thoroughbred, you have Standardbred, you have Belgians, you have all these crossbreeds. Right here on this property, we can walk around and look at these Mustangs, and you will see every type of horse in them.
I know that there was a surprise factor many, many years ago that Florida is known for its cattle, but it's really known also for horses.
Absolutely. Florida, actually in Ocala and throughout Florida, even down in Willington, all this whole state is a big horse state, and the Bureau of Land Management used to bring Mustangs here twice a year, and we have a lot of Mustangs right here in Florida.
And how did they bring them? Was it the old-fashioned roundup, and then they'd bring them to you?
The Bureau of Land Management would bring them in satellite adoptions, and that's where they brought the horses, say about 80. Back in the day when I first got involved, they would have like 160 wild horses. They would rent a facility, they'd bring in their pens and panels, they'd put the horses, and you'd look at these horses in a pen, and you'd think, wow, you know, they don't look so wild. It's when you get them home away from that is where the wild really shows.
Well, they show their true personality,
yes.
right? And
yes.
They kick up their heels, as you say.
They can be, they're just afraid. They really are. When I started working with them, I realized that people misunderstood them. You know, in the 1950s, 1960s, a lot of dime store novels were showing these fire-breathing, bucking horses.
Always black.
Yes. And, but really, they are really a very sensitive, a very kind animal, a very giving horse. Like when you start working with them, they are so willing to do what you ask.
Horses have been a very, very solid part of our American history, and they continue to do that. But what changes have you seen with the horses?
Well, you know, our horses, like you're mentioning, and being a solid part, they carried people across the West, the settlers. I mean, you wouldn't have made it across there without the wagons. And so that's one of the things about the Mustang being part of our history. But today's horse is more of a companion animal. People do use them for show. They do some with the cattle and that. But our horses, mostly what we adopt is for companionship, enjoyment, to get out and ride the trails. They also make great therapy animals. Horses are very intuitive into what you're feeling and how you're feeling. They also mirror the way that you are with them. They mirror back, and it's amazing to work with them. And I have the opportunity, I'm really blessed to try to show that to people from all over the world with the program we have here about the sensitivity of a horse.
You can't tame or break a wild horse. Instead, they call it gentling. It's a humane and safe technique that is used to gain the trust of a wild horse, and we were able to see just how they do it.
Kokopelli is a 3-year-old Mustang from Utah. He came from the sulfur herd. The sulfur herd originally came from the Spaniards back in the 1500s. When they came through Salt Lake City, they had these beautiful little Spanish Mustangs, and the horses got away or left behind, created a herd. They're called the sulfurs, and they are very difficult horses to work with because they are not bred with many other bloodlines. They are pretty much all sulfur, so that makes them higher end, hotter horses, little Spanish horses.
Now, when the horses come in, now I'm expecting him to come over here and cuddle with me and nuzzle with me, and he couldn't be any further behind that post than ever. But you've talked about gentling.
Yes.
What is gentling? Can we get him gentled?
We are trying. This horse came in after 2 other people had him, and that sometimes is tough because shame on you for doing that to me, shame on me to let you do it again. So when they are handled by other people and they make them really afraid, like when we walked up, he made that exhale of air coming out of him because he is afraid of what you're going to do to him.
After years of working with wild horses, Diane says reading a horse's body language and making them feel secure and safe is key to gentling.
So the square pen helps him to turn into a corner and pivot and feel like his back is against the wall. If this pen was round and I kept him in a round pen, they constantly move because they're afraid there's no wall
They pace.
to feel. Yes.
They pace.
If you notice, okay, how tight his poor little mouth is, how his steps are, his tail is raised up, and his belly is already drawn up. So I'm going to take pressure off and get him to turn. See how I even brought him in a little bit by being this far away? Yes, so if I come up to him, see I put pressure on, he already felt that. I put pressure on his hips and his barrel, and then I take pressure off and try to draw him in. So he is not going to let me just walk up. And this is sad, he's been here since February, and he's better than he was, but he really is so afraid of that first touch.
For more than 7 months, Diane has been working with Kokopelli, and he's a tough horse to gentle. This hollow pole, called a cane pole, is used to slowly allow Diane to come in close. She can touch and scratch him, acting like she's another horse. You notice his breathing and body positioning is slower and calmer, not as tense.
So I'm just going to come on up this stick, and so I'll come up here and I'm going to pet him. So see how by having contact with this pole, I was able to touch him where I couldn't walk up. So we have not gotten to that point where I can walk up yet.
So do you think he will be one of your success stories?
Yes, I do. Yeah, he's got the mind for it, absolutely. It's just slower. And unfortunately, like if I had nothing to do but this all day long, we would be there a lot quicker.
Each Mustang that's brought here is gentled, but each horse has their own personality and experiences, making the process different for each one. But one thing that is the same is each of these horses have a safe and happy life.
And easy.
The Wild Horse Rescue Center is in the process of moving to another property, one with more land for the horses. If you would like more information on Mustangs or if you would like to adopt, visit their website, wildhorserescuecenter.org. You may have heard it that saying before when it comes to fish, well, they only have a few seconds of memory. Could this be true? There's only one way to find out. Our Inspector Planet will have the answer next. You can be sure your furry friend continues to be loved and cared for even when you can no longer be there for them. Dantes Den provides a permanent, loving home for dogs whose owners have set up a lifetime care program for their beloved companion. We honor the trust placed in us by providing loving care, spacious dens, on-site veterinary care, and plenty of room to run and play. For more information, go to dantesden.org or call 844-DANTES-DEN. Dantes Den, continuing the love. Science is everywhere and it's all around us. It's observing the world, forming questions, and the willingness to find the answers. It's something our Inspector Planet does every day, and you can too.
My name is Dr. Tracy Fanara. I'm an environmental engineer, which means that I use different scientific disciplines to protect the environment, humans, and wildlife. At Mote Marine Laboratory, I answer questions through investigation and myth-busting.
Hi, babies.
What are you doing?
I'm saying goodbye to them. They're not going to see me for a few days.
They have no idea who you are.
They know me. Fish have a memory. Every time I come in that door, they come right over so I can feed them.
Fish do not have a memory. Do they? My entire life I've heard that fish have no memory. 3 seconds, 7 seconds, 10 seconds, but I have no idea where that's coming from or if that's even true. But there is a way that we can test it. Mote Marine is in fact a marine research facility, and in their aquarium they have lots of fish. What better way to find out if fish do in fact have memories than to talk with some of the staff and volunteers that work with these animals every day.
Tracy, perfect case in point. Red grouper, green moray eel. They have what's called a symbiotic relationship.
Symbiotic relationship, meaning that they work together to both benefit?
Exactly. So they hunt together, and the grouper will signal for the moray so they can hunt together. So the grouper's really fast. He'll flush fish out of different areas, and if they try to hide, the moray will come on the other side and put them out into the open so they can both feed.
That's amazing.
So they have to have some type of memory in order to do this over and over and over again.
Yeah, you're right. I guess I do see that. If they have this relationship throughout their life cycle, then they definitely have to have some kind of memory.
Mm-hmm.
And here at the Ray Touch Tank, these animals have learned an important skill. To stay away from people, they've learned to stay away from shadows that appear overhead.
Shadow is a predator to them.
All right, so they've learned that when they see a shadow, to stay away.
Yes.
And them learning that habit means that they have a memory, right?
Absolutely. For instance, they know when one of our aquatic biologists comes here to feed them. Right now, they're in the upper area because they have not been fed yet. Usually the Atlantic ray does not come this close up, the magnificent little creature. And likewise, earlier when we saw the camouflaged yellow ray coming up to the edge here, that's not a common behavior that I've observed. And obviously it tells me they have learned that this is the location of where food is. And in fact, I observe our aquatic biologists feeding them in the upper area of their habitat.
Okay, so they know to stay away from shadows and to come up to the top when they're ready to eat.
Yes, this is what has been observed ad infinitum.
Well, so even fish with cartilage have memories.
Absolutely.
So what about bigger fish, like these sharks? Well, it turns out they have brains and intelligence.
And Mote has been famous for many, many years of researching shark intelligence. And over here, if you take a look at me, Tracy, at the front of the habitat are several symbols. You'll see these symbols on the PVC poles. And in fact, by using positive reinforcement training, food reward for an accomplished task, each of our sharks has learned to go to its specific station. It allows our veterinarians and aquatic biologists to bring them into the back shallow pool if they need a checkup, if they need blood work done, to train them how to go into a sling, so if we have to weigh them or transport them. And it has taught us that indeed these are extremely intelligent animals with an excellent developed memory.
Wow, so it's pretty cool to find out that sharks can be trained just like dogs. Too bad you can't cuddle with one. As it turns out, fish do have memories, in fact, pretty good ones. In a research study, they found out that fish can have at least up to 5 months worth of memory. They train fish with sound to come when they want it to be fed. They let these fish out in the wild, played the same sound, and these fish came from the wild to the humans for feeding. 5 months later. Remember guys, anyone can be a scientist or an engineer with some passion, hard work, and an innate curiosity of how the world works.
I think it's safe to say, just like us, when it comes to remembering, a reward or a special treat can help things stick. Coming up next, if you have a dog, a leash is a must. But what kind do you choose? Help us straight away. Stay with us.
Mascara adds depth to the eyes. Lipstick gives the mouth color and definition. And ALS paralyzes the body.
You look great, Mom.
Thank you. Slowly taking away the ability to move and eventually breathe.
This is an important message for anyone with Medicare. You may be eligible for an all-in-one Medicare plan that combines hospital, medical, and prescription drug coverage together with extra benefits that may include dental, vision, hearing aids, and much more. Some of these plans have a $0 monthly premium regardless of your income. That's right. For one low plan premium, or in some cases a $0 premium, you may be able to get coverage for your hospital visits, doctor appointments, prescription drugs, routine dental care, eyeglasses and contact lenses, hearing aids, and possibly more. Today may be the first time you've heard about this type of Medicare plan. The advisors at the Medicare.com helpline are licensed insurance agents who will explain more when you call. Call now to see if you qualify. Call the number on your screen now. Call now to see if you qualify for these benefits. You worked hard for your Medicare. Now is the time for your Medicare to work hard for you. Not affiliated with or acting on behalf of any government agency or program.
Collars, harnesses, leashes, 4-foot, 6-foot. Oh, there are so many available. And choosing the right type of system for your dog is especially important for training and your pet's safety. Jesse, we know that leash equates life for a dog, certainly, but there's so many choices. Where do you start?
So, there's a lot of different training-wise and convenience-wise for people with leashes. You have your regular leash, which is what most people have, 4 to 6 feet, has a clip on the end. A lot of people will use a flexi leash. I'm not a huge fan of this, only because they can get tangled, people get rope burn.
Neither than I.
Yeah, and people like it because they can let their dog out 20 feet and they can retract it, but a lot of times, you see them at the pet store and they're in the next aisle or whatever, so have that. We have a slip lead, which is good a lot of times at the vet or at a kennel, or even with your own dog. You don't have to worry about having a collar on. It goes on, slips around their neck. They can't slip out of it. We use this a lot, like if we see a stray dog or whatever, we'll throw a slip leash on them. And then we have our long line, which for training, when we're doing comm or doing any kind of distance work, we keep the long line on Even some of our tracking dogs, when we do search and rescue, we use the long line. So they don't have to be right next to us, but we still have some kind of an anchor to them.
Now, you mentioned on a conventional leash, which this is, 4 or 6 foot. We're mostly all used to the 6 foot. When would you use the 4 foot?
It depends on the person, right? If you live in a kind of a congested city area, a lot of people like the 4 foot. I like the 6 foot because I'll let dogs drag it around and I just have it there in case I need it. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. Some people just like having a little bit extra.
Now, so much has been said about, let's not put a leash on them, you're gonna hurt their vocal box. Why do you do that? So people will go to a harness. What do you think about a harness?
So I think harnesses are great if you're not going to teach your dog how to walk on a leash, or if you have a puppy, right? If walking on a loose leash is not important to you and you're okay with them being way out, then a harness is fine, because you don't have as much control of their head, but you have a way to keep them there. They're not pulling on their neck. Especially with really young dogs, we do a harness because we're not quite there where we're teaching them how to be sensitive to a leash and collar. Because in our training, we use the leash so they understand the pressure. In the beginning, we put a harness on so we don't have to worry about that affecting. They can pull all over the place, it doesn't matter.
Now, is this an old wives' tale that if we throw a collar on and of course it's tight or we're trying to get control, we're gonna hurt them?
No, it depends on how you do it, right? If you don't teach your dog what the collar means, a lot of dogs will just pull through it. So they'll be choking or whatever, and some dogs don't care. They'll just pull right through it. So it's really important that you teach your dog what the leash means, that is communication from us, and how to turn that pressure off so you have a nice loose leash.
Now, we get a puppy, and of course we want this puppy to be free and to have happiness and all of that. So when does the leash go on?
So I usually like putting the leash on the puppy, just let him drag it around in the beginning so he gets used to it. A lot of people, when they call, they have a little puppy that they can't get to walk on a leash because as soon as they feel it, they hit the brakes and they don't want to walk anymore because they're not used to it. And a lot of puppies, when they're real young, you go through that honeymoon stage where you're the best thing in the world and they follow you around, so people assume, I don't need a leash on. Then when it's time for a leash, they struggle. So a lot of times, even if we have a puppy that's like that, we'll just put the leash on, let them drag it around just to get used to it.
So we've learned there really isn't a one-size-fits-all when it comes to leashes. Instead, your dog's training level, their age, their size, and how much activity you will be doing with your pet comes into play. Coming up next, we talk to Dr. Dog about food.
You like to pay less. That's why you made Honda Accord the best-selling mid-size car in America. Get the redesigned Accord, the North American Car of the Year, or Civic, a KBB.com Best Buy for less than the competition. Like SUVs and trucks? Get Motor Trend's SUV of the Year, CRV, the 8-passenger Pilot, or Ridgeline truck for up to $4,240 less. Today at your local Honda dealer.
Helping families with mesothelioma is all we do. My firm has been offering a free book on mesothelioma for over 10 years. Since that time, hundreds of people with mesothelioma have trusted us to represent them. We have local offices throughout the U.S. and there is no risk to you. Mesothelioma really is all we do. Call us at 1-800-485-6000. That's 1-800-485-6000. Or go to mesoonlylaw.com.
ABC 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you. Watch ABC 7 wherever you are, on our live stream, on mysuncoast.com, on the ABC 7 My Suncoast app, powered by the Eye Associates, providing sight for life, featuring traffic maps and live radar, dining with recipes, and My Suncoast Restaurant Guide. Visit mysuncoast.com. Click on the Apps tab to download the ABC 7 My Suncoast app for Apple and Android.
Dr. Greiner, there's so much to be said about food, and we really don't know what to do. We have dry food, we have wet food, we have grain-free, we have raw. How do we select, after you have seen them and you've done the physical, What are the differences? Is it important to have a dry food with wet, only dry? This is a conundrum.
I'm a proponent of feeding mostly dry food because it's much better for their teeth. And a little bit of canned food is a treat. But I'm also a big believer in table foods. Dogs are omnivores, which is what we are. They're commonly misinterpreted as being carnivores. Cats are obligate carnivores. Without meat protein, they really can't survive. Dogs can, in fact, survive even on a vegetarian diet. And so you see a lot of people arguing, well, dogs out in the wild, they eat nothing but raw food. And by cooking the food, we ruin the enzymes, and so they don't absorb the nutrients very well. Well, a point in fact is that cooking is what has enabled people to evolve to where we are now, because we get so much more energy and nutrients out of our food by cooking it. We had to spend much less time hunting and gathering. And so that, to me, is, if you look at the age expectancy of a dog out in the wild versus the life expectancy of a domestic dog, just hands down, I think that the cooking the food is a very good thing for them. But they're just like people. If you give them nothing but garbage and junk food, then they're going to get fat and lazy just like we would. And so you have to be careful how much protein is in there, fat and carbohydrates. Dogs love fat. We love fat. That's
we love it.
Yeah, fat in anything makes it taste good. And so that's why if they're going to steal something off the table, it's usually a meat product. And so everybody thinks, oh, they're stealing the meat. No, they're stealing the fat. And so be careful with it. If you give them a really high-fat diet, it can also lead to problems, particularly in some breeds, as you know, like Schnauzers with pancreatitis.
Yes.
And so we see that, especially if they get raw fat, like a dog that steals raw bacon.
Now, Zeus is always by me when we have pizza. So you have the cheese, you have the marinara sauce, you have the crust. He gets a little bit of the crust, nothing more. Is that okay?
Absolutely. However, the caveat is you don't want to turn them into a beggar. And so my dogs have always gotten some leftovers from the table, particularly vegetables, which they love, but never from the table. Because after all the dishes are put away, at some point I'll call them over, and it's a reward for not begging at the table.
Well, that's a great hint, but I just want you to know that I sit there like this and I do one of these.
Oh, shame on you.
Great advice from the doc as usual. We hope you have fun and learned a thing or two along the way. We'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some wild adventures. Until then, thanks for watching.
That she doesn't have to be, whoops, she's seen that come up. She says, I don't know. That's okay. Come here.
No, it was me.
Planning the right amount of food is hard. The Guestimator makes it easy. Just tell it who's coming and what's for dinner. Then it tells you how much to make. And yes, it even plans for leftovers. Try it at SaveTheFood.com.
On the next Black Almanac.
Amid threats of bombs, murders, and affronts committed against houses of worship, clergy members say they're already bolstering security, and they're not deterred from delivering community resources and nurturing minds and hearts.
On youth nights, we have to have one of those security guards there. And it's unfortunate that we have to do those things, but that's just the world that we live in.
Sunday morning at 7:30 on ABC 7. Check out My Suncoast Dining on mysuncoast.com, your guide to the foodie lifestyle. ABC 7's own Chef Judy serves up her favorite recipes, cooking tips and trends, dining blogs, step-by-step videos, and Suncoast Restaurant Guide. You'll find it all at mysuncoast.com/dining. Download the all-new ABC 7 First Alert Weather app now.